I had a successful business, but it looked great on paper. But personally, I had zero time. I was under a severe amount of pressure. I am fiercely independent, which made it even worse to ask for help. And that was stunting my growth. And there was just one too many evenings I sat at my kitchen dining table crying my heart out in front of my husband because of the pressures I had placed upon myself. And I knew that I couldn't go on like this. I couldn't even go on holiday to relax. Holidays used to bring me anxiety and stress and worry.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Flip Your Mindset. I am your host, Stacey Uhrig, and today's guest is Linda Carmichael, all the way from Ireland, correct?
Yes.
So nice to have you here. So guys, let me tell you a little bit about Linda. Linda is a mindset mentor from Rise Mindset and Performance. Each and every week, she teaches her clients how to achieve any goal, through the success method, thinking into results, which was created by Bob Proctor, whom some may know from the book The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. This method is based on 60 years of science and research of the most successful people from around the world. I was really excited when I was introduced to Linda because I know a lot of people in the coaching space who coach from a space developed by either Bob Proctor or Napoleon Hill or Mary Morrissey. And it's a really unique perspective. And I think it's one to really be explored when I'm working with my clients and they're coming to me stuck in life because adverse experiences that they had early in their developmental years caused them to have a particular lens through which they saw themselves and others that hinders them. Once I've kind of helped them clear that lens and create a better filter, anything's really possible because their limiting beliefs are kind of much quieter or kind of retired at that point. So bringing somebody in like Linda to talk about what life could look like once you're recovered from and resolved from and worked through some of your biggest blocks, I want you guys to hear what some of the opportunity is from the hope side, right? We're hope merchants. We want to help people see it's not just about talking about trauma all the time, but, what could life look like if I had resolved it? So I'm really excited to have Linda come on today. Now, let's face it. Very few people stumble onto the work of, say, a Mary Morrissey or a Napoleon Hill or Bob Proctor without having had hit their own rock bottom. So what I'd love to do is have Linda share a little bit about what her rock bottom was for her, what got her to learn about Bob, and how that changed her life. So welcome, Linda.
Thank you so much, Stacey. I'm so delighted to be here.
I'm happy to have you.
When you ask me like what got me here, that is so true. I think that everyone needs to experience some level of rock bottom before they stop looking at outside and start looking within. Yeah. And that's really where I was. I had a successful business, but it looked great on paper. But personally, I had zero time. I was under a severe amount of pressure. I am fiercely independent, which made it even worse to ask for help. And that was stunting my growth. And there was just one too many evenings I sat at my kitchen dining table crying my heart out in front of my husband because of the pressures I had placed upon myself. And I knew that I couldn't go on like this. And that
Can
was
you
my
paint for the listeners what those pressures were? It's really important for me as a host to help people connect with the story, right? So what was it that you were feeling, experiencing at that time? What were some of the specifics that brought you to those tears at that dining room table?
For me, it was I had too many spinning plates. And even though I was succeeding in one area of my life, I seemed to be failing at other areas. So, for example, my business would be running really well, but if you walked into my office, it looked like some kind of tornado had blown in there. I had a very disorganized workspace. Um, Thankfully, my husband is really great when it comes to doing things around the house and getting things ready. Without him, I would be living in squalor, but with a really great business. I just found it so difficult to manage things. And I was so afraid to slow down in case everything disappeared. So I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing.
I'd like to talk a little bit about that because I think that's really common. It's the scarcity mindset, right? Like if I don't keep my foot on the pedal all the way down with the gas going the whole way, if I just take my foot off even the littlest bit, this whole thing could collapse.
Mm-hmm. And by this stage, I maybe spent 5 years building that particular business. So there was a lot of stake for me. I'd walked away from a corporate career. I wasn't using my university degree that I'd spent all the money on. So the stakes were high in that regard. And it is like I couldn't even go on holiday to relax. Holidays used to bring me anxiety and stress and worry.
What kind of business was it, Linda?
It was a handmade business. So I was creating products for jewelry makers. So people who create jewelry, I was making really specific products for them. It's very niche. I've always been a person who has created the solution to my own problems. And this is where it was born. And it was just something I was really good at. I could figure out the problem. I could create the items that people wanted. I was helping loads of people. And then suddenly businesses relied on my business to help their business. So the responsibility got higher. And as I grew, more money was coming in. And then it was like making sure your finances were okay. I just got really like money for people who don't always have money. Increased money and cash can be really scary because we don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah. So and was that the case for you?
Oh, I had a wee bit of everything going on. I have an amazing accountant. Only for him, I probably would have sleepless nights. But every time he'd, Linda, you're fine. What are you worried about? And I didn't know what I was worried about. I just knew that if you had this kind of money, it must be scary or, something's going to happen.
And I remember, I think you mentioned in some of the paperwork you filled out for me, did you grow up with money?
No.
Right. And so when we talk about paradigms or self-beliefs or core beliefs, what was your mindset around money that was causing you this scarcity mindset?
For me, money was scarce. You had to work really, really, really hard to get it, which is probably where I was so driven. And you had to be smart. So if you didn't have, all the qualifications from school, if you didn't get that great job, like business wasn't something that was really sold to me. It was like you made money by getting a good job.
It's interesting. I interviewed somebody for another podcast the other day, and one of the things that came up was one of the core beliefs that she had walked with from early on. And anybody that listens to me knows I connect everything back to the beginning, right? Everything goes back to things that we witnessed, observed, experienced, felt as children during our developmental years. It's where our core beliefs are formed. Mm-hmm. And there was this idea of if it wasn't stressful, it wasn't successful. Mm-hmm. So if it doesn't create complete burnout for me, it's not successful, because she witnessed growing up parents that were entrepreneurial, that were not relaxed in their entrepreneurial spirit, made good money, but were very, very stressed out doing it. So she harnessed this belief system that money doesn't come easy. So think about that. Money will never easily and effortlessly flow to me. It doesn't come without complete painstaking sacrifice ever. And you can't be successful without it being stressful. So I share these things because, again, you could grow up in a healthy, I'm going to put in quotes, functional household. But as we grow up, the things that we witness, observe, feel really between the ages of 0 and 10 influence and create the filter that we see life through until it hinders us enough, usually in our 20s, 30s, 40s, upwards to our 60s, 70s, till we're ready to change the lens, which you can change the lens. You created the lens, you can change the lens. So did you harness any of those beliefs when it came to money and working and success?
Oh, absolutely. We frequently as children heard the saying, do you think we've got a money tree in the backyard?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you going to get the money from? It seemed that the money it was hiding somewhere. And my mother was a stay-at-home mother, so she didn't earn any of her own income. And that always struck like, so you have to kind of survive off whatever you've been given.
Mm-hmm.
And that reliance on somebody else. So that's where my face independence came from. My father worked very hard, fairly poorly paid, but still he had responsibilities. He worked very hard. And for me, the only route to success was to go to a good school, get a university, college education, get into a great corporate job, and that's when you've made it. But what I realized was once I reached that point, I had the great corporate job, but every month I was skinned. I was broke. And I thought, I'm supposed to have made it. How come I make this money and I don't have any money left? And I realized at that point I'd been told a lie, and that wasn't the way to success. I thought, and so without even knowing Bob, this was years before I had even considered mindset, because this particular topic maybe would have been uncomfortable for me because of the way I was brought up through religion. Not that I was brought up overly strict, but I still had kind of traditional values and belief systems around that. And I just decided I was like, I need to walk away from this because I am so unhappy. I'm so stressed. I feel like I'm working for nothing, and I've done everything I was told. I did everything, and I still wasn't where I wanted to be.
Right. I hear that a lot. So you start this other business, right? And thinking, okay, I'm really good at this. I'm making really good money. That's kind of the success. And yet you're still unhappy.
Mm-hmm. But it was
that
different
kind of a confusion for you?
Well, I had the money, but I didn't have time to spend it.
Yeah.
And so
this is about time, money, freedom, right?
Yeah. And I still was just plodding along. My friendship circle were very much traditional, where there wasn't many, if any, of my friends started businesses. They all went to work. They got the job. My friends, most of them went to university. So there was nobody I didn't even talk to. My husband, he thankfully had his own business. So there was that kind of, well, if he can do it, maybe I can do it too. And he was just so supportive anyway, because, I think everybody's spouse wants their partner to be happy. And I was clearly very unhappy. And that's really where I took it from. I think it'd be harder for somebody who didn't have the support. Would I have taken the step if he wasn't there? I don't know. I can't say for sure I would have.
So what was that step? What was it that you got introduced to at this time of seeking something else, right? Seeking this fulfillment or this understanding of, why have I achieved all of this and yet I'm still unfulfilled?
I think it was because when I looked at it, because I was under the stress, and I don't know, was I taking it too seriously? I was like, I'm not reaching my full potential this way. Because I felt like I was bottlenecking my own success. I was like, I'm not going to get to wherever it is I want to be. I had this burning inside us, knowing that, reaching your full potential in life is important. What that was going to look like, I didn't know, but it didn't feel like I was hitting the mark where I was.
Right. So what's the step that you took?
The first step that I took, I was 35 at the time, and I asked myself a question. Just into myself. I didn't share it out loud. Just into myself. And I asked myself, do I still want to be here, living like this, going through this by the time I'm 40? And I was like, heck no. So then I was like, well, what am I going to do? And that question alone really just cracked open my mind to possibilities that I was blinded to before. And I understand it now. I just started to say good, but because I had shifted my frequency and my vibration, I actually was attracting things that I needed to help me.
So I'm going to ask you to stop there because that makes sense to me, but I want to speak for the listener. Describe what you mean when you say you are vibrating at a higher frequency, because this is a part of understanding the law of attraction, the secret. What did that mean to you at the time? Because that's going to be foreign to some people.
Yeah, it's foreign to me. I think I was closed-minded until that point.
And what was the difference? What would that have to do with that frequency that you're talking about?
What happened was, up until that moment, I hadn't decided that I wanted better, and I hadn't made the committed decision. I think I would like life to be better, but until that moment, I wasn't fully committed to the cause. So when mindset is setting your mind to a frequency. So when I set my mind to a higher frequency, and the things that on the higher frequency are all the better things we want in life, that's when things started to change for me. That's what kicks in the law of vibration. Everybody knows about the law of attraction. And most people have a basic understanding of it. How you attract things into your life and how
But that's what I want to get to. A lot of people don't know it. So I want to give them like a primer for the law of attraction, because this might be very foreign to them. Right? That you can change your mindset and change a frequency. And then the idea being, if you have a limiting mindset, you're vibrating at a lower frequency, you're attracting a lower frequency. So from a very simplistic conversation, can you express to people so they understand it if they don't know the law of attraction?
The law of attraction operates like a mirror. So if you're feeling bad, you will only connect with other things that are bad and bring them towards you in your life. So if you're looking in a mirror and you're describing yourself as ugly, you're only going to see ugliness. You're never going to see beauty. So for me, up until that point, I just saw money's hard to get, causes a lot of stress. This is the way it has to be. Until I decided, but why can't it be different? And I looked at it was a really big time for digital nomads. I'm like, how are these people living off their laptops and never having to do any work? And I decided I might want that. I would like that for me. And but I had to make that committed decision. You can't be wishy-washy about this. You either want it or you don't. And you will know when you want it because your body just moves in that direction.
Mm-hmm. And you do feel an energy shift. It feels like excitement, right? Mm-hmm. Where you get this flood or tsunami of literally energy that runs through your body. What do you call it?
It's more curiosity, because when you're really curious, you just get lost and maybe you're curious about, you're being nosy what your neighbors are doing, and then you will get distracted by every single thing when you're curious. It's like a deep curiosity. That's what I started to do. I was like, well, how are they doing? But until I had that moment where my mind was open wide to think of anything better, I was just going to stay where I was at. But I had this deep curiosity, how are they doing? I started asking better. Bob always said, when you ask better questions, you get better answers. And I just started to ask myself better questions. And I was getting
And this is before you even knew about Bob Proctor. And right. So you're starting to ask yourself better questions. You're feeling more committed to getting curious, right? And really exploring that versus it would be nice if. And do you hire a coach? What is it that you do in order to understand what your next step should be?
I always think about this. I know the book that I had was The Miracle Morning. And I can't even remember how I got into getting this book, because I was so busy. I didn't have time to sit down and read a book for a start. So I downloaded an Audible. I was about the Miracle Morning, and I can't remember the thought that triggered that this might be a good idea. I maybe went onto Amazon, I went self-help book, and that was highly recommended. And I started to read it, and I started to actually just share just some of my learnings on my personal Instagram. And I did get a bit of heat, and people are like, "Oh, I can't get up at 5 a.m. I only get home from this time," and it wasn't always, they liked the idea of it, but they kind of thought I was a bit mad. And I read it anyway, and I started practicing it, and I started to feel different. So that's when I was introduced to gratitude. So I started to write out things I was grateful for, and that's a real shift in your mindset, because when your focus is on the good, just like that mirror, if I'm focusing on the good, I'm going to see good in that mirror, and those good things come towards you. And it's like a domino effect. The more good you see, the more you kind of, the more you look around, like, that's actually good too. That's great too. And it raises your vibration. It raises how you feel. And I like that feeling. It was new to me. And it wasn't as if I was ungrateful in the past. I just wasn't really as consciously aware of it until I'd started that practice. And then I think I was just chatting to a friend that I was doing this, and they're like, "Linda, that really sounds like a book that I read." And I was, at this stage, I'm like, "Give me what you got," because I really into this by this stage. And it was only maybe, my journey started in January 2019. So this is around maybe February, March. And I downloaded, the book was The Secret. I'd never heard of this book. So this book was released 2007. This is 2019. Never heard of it. And I got it on Audible because I'm a busy girl, don't have time to stop. So I listened to it. I listened to that book 4 times back to back before I turned it off.
Wow.
I just could not stop listening to it. And I know now the reason why I couldn't stop listening, because it was the truth. It was landed in me in such a way, like, because I knew it was the truth. And I always describe this moment as if somebody told you something that you didn't know, but you did know, but you didn't know. It's like it was always there. I just wasn't consciously aware of it. And
is it easy for you to kind of summarize what The Secret is and what it meant for you?
The Secret really does talk about the power of your mind and how our reality starts from the inside, and it teaches you how you have the power to create it. So create a life that you want. We spend so much time habitually thinking about what we don't want, and then we wonder why all these negative things keep happening to us. So The Secret really, it's a commercialized version. It's been created to kind of attract the masses or to help the masses. That's why a lot of people read The Secret, maybe that doesn't change their life, because it's been adapted to really open. I believe that Rhonda Byrne just wanted more people around the world to be open to the idea, even if they weren't into it, that there was a possibility that they could create a life they wanted through the power of their mind, one thought at a time. And it talks a lot about the law of attraction. There's many different universal laws, but that's kind of the main one. It's the easiest one for people to understand, because it's kind of like mathematics, like 1 and 1 equals 2. There was great leaders from all over the world, but there was one man that stood out to me, and only by his voice. I didn't see him in the audio, and that was Bob Proctor. And so that's when he came onto my kind of my Richter scale. I was like, "Who's this guy?" And that was when the next step happened for me.
And what was that next step?
I came across a coach, a mentor who'd worked with Bob, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I need to go and see this person and hear what they have to say." And because at that stage, I wasn't even really like, it didn't mean, because like, why did you not seek out Bob? Well, here, if somebody's working for Bob, I'm happy enough to work with anybody to learn what he's teaching. And that's when I was introduced to a program that I now teach called Thinking into Results. And then that's when the game changed completely.
So how did it change for you? What was that program?
So when I started Thinking Results, for the first time I had permission to think big. I was told, Linda, you can have whatever you want. And I'm like, whatever I want? Like, really? Because, right now I was maybe like being a little bit limiting with my goals and desires, but if you can have me, I can have anything that I want. Bob always caveated this with within the bounds of nature. We're not, well, I always say to my clients, we're not turning into unicorns. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So stop wishing for it. But within the bounds of nature, and I thought I could do anything. And that's all I needed. I just needed permission from someone to say, you want it, go get it. Not someone to say, oh, I think it's a bit too much, or how are you going to do that, or where are you going to get the money for that, or that'll take too long. So somebody said, yes, away you go for it. And that was so freeing for me, because up until that point, I hadn't imagined anything beyond. It was all very limited. It's just like, it was a wee bit more of what I knew how to do already. But as you will learn when you go through thinking results, is that there's no transformation when there's no growth. So I had to think beyond, and thinking beyond helped me act beyond. And that's when I started to see different results in life. And that's how thinking results works, because when you have your mind open to possibility, you really start to think a little bit differently. And when you start to think differently, you start to feel differently, you start to take different action, and everything we do has a reaction. And that's why when clients come into thinking and results, they actually start to experience lots of wins very quickly, because everything has kind of shifted. That's why I get so exciting. And I was just like a rocket ship. I was so excited. I felt like someone had been holding me at the gates of the playground. And I was just dying to get in. And then they're like, okay, Linda, away you go. And I could run to whatever I wanted to, the slide or the swings or the climbing frame. I was free. I just felt
And what
free.
kind of shifts did you see in your life that were transformative and kind of proof for you?
The big thing was I started to think bigger. And one of the things I actually really love is like, I got permission to have fun in my business. Why did it have to be boring? I was like, so my question was not necessarily how to earn more money. How can I have more fun in my business? How can I, just play with it more? And when you are in that, when you're experiencing that vibration of joy and happiness, you're really high up there. And that's when you connect with things that are on a higher level, that are good. So that kind of became my mantra. Like, how can I have more fun? And my goodness, I had so much fun, but I just thought when you're in business, you had to be serious or nobody would take you seriously. So, and I would say you can have fun in any business. Why not inject fun into your life, to that little child? So I started to have fun with my business. I started to think big. I started to get a lot braver when it came to taking more risks and, really stretching what I was doing already and not worrying about what was going to happen, when it was going to be positive or negative. I just was like, I'm going to do this. Let's just get it done. And for me, it was just that freedom of self. And for the first time, I think when you start to learn this material and how you're hardwired and how your brain works, you really start to forgive yourself. Because sometimes, especially as an entrepreneur, you're really hard on yourself. When you understand how you're actually operating, there's more understanding there. And one of the biggest gifts was, because I knew how I operated, I operate the same way as other people. I understood them and why their behaviors and their actions the way they were. And it took away judgment. It took away all that heavy energy that I didn't need. And it was such a gift. That's probably one of the biggest gifts I got.
I mean, I think that for me as a coach, that's one of my biggest gifts. You're talking about connection and self and how people show up. And, as somebody that does a lot of parts work, I do a lot of hypnosis work through RTT. Like, anytime someone's coming up into my space where it's negative or edgy, or I'm like, wow, that's like, okay. I never judge. I quickly get very curious. Wow, what is going on with them? What's their paradigm? What's their core belief? What's, what kind of experiences that they have growing up that caused them to show up this way, which is liberating because it disallows you from taking anything personally. Right? So I'd love to be able to get to where you are today and what you are doing today with what it is that you learned.
So I still have my other business, But back in 2021, I came across another block. I was like, I've done all these things. I'd made amazing friends, and my life completely just completely transformed. And I was like, but there's something missing, and I wasn't quite sure what it was. And I actually just, when you get into this work, and it doesn't happen for everybody. For me, I'm still quite a spiritual person, so I call this energy, this infinite source, God. Everybody's got a different name for it, whatever lands with you and feels comfortable. But for me, it's always been God. And I just didn't know what it was that I wanted. So when I journal about it, I really sat with myself and thought about it. And I mean, like, really think about it. Not in the way I was getting distracted, like what's for dinner later, or I still need to do this on my to-do list. I just sat in stillness and quietness, no music. And I wasn't in a rush for the answer. I totally believed that when I was ready, the answer would come to me. So it did. It arrived, and it was location freedom, because my business still required me to be at home. Not as much as it did before, but I still didn't have this complete freedom. And it came from my husband talking about this. We were looking at a new property in Spain, and I was like, what is my paradigm told me, that inner voice told me, I call it a paradigm, but for most people, they hear it like that inner voice told me, but you don't, like, why would you spend that money when you don't have time to make it worthwhile? And I was like, oh, why don't I have time? It's like, yeah, you can't leave. And I was like, oh, I can't just be wherever I want to be. I'm missing location freedom. Again, I didn't know what that meant either. And what I've learned through studying thinking as results is that I don't need to have the answers right now. I just need to trust that they will arrive. And they always do. But they have to be ready for them. And literally maybe about 6 weeks later, the answer came to me. And actually, at that point when I realized I wanted location freedom, and I didn't know what that meant for me at the time, I just left it to God, and I was like, whatever it is you want me to do, I'll do it. No obstacles, no restrictions, because the law of attraction likes to work at speed. If you put too many kind of stipulations on the goal, you're just going to take it longer to get to you. Now, obviously, I always say to my clients, like, have a few non-negotiables, especially if you're wanting to attract a partner. But see, for some things, don't make it harder. So I left it wide open, as I didn't know what was going to be presented to me. And this, because I had been so successful through thinking results, I started to attract people who were asking for help. Linda, how did you do this? Or they were asking about the material. And although I had my other business, and I created an online calendar, much like you have, and like 30-minute slots a few times a week, just to help people. Because one thing I noticed with success is that it's a wee bit lonely up there. But when you really reach success in a really true way, it's natural for you to want to turn around and help those behind you.
Absolutely.
And I joke with my friends, I'm like, I want everybody to be successful so they can all buy me dinner.
I mean, this is how I started. Before I ever had a coaching practice, people would reach out to me and say, I'd like to know more about how you navigate life's challenges. How did you go from all the challenges you had growing up to this mindset where you seem to have a more peaceful life now? And I would do exactly what you just described. Oh, why don't you just get on my calendar for an hour? And I would give them a link, and I'm like, oh, I have this time. And I wasn't charging anybody. I didn't have any kind of motive. I didn't even have a coaching practice. I never thought I was going to be a coach.
Yeah,
it was
exactly
never in my radar. And I loved it. I loved it. Nothing gave me greater pleasure than to say, hey, this is where I was, and here's how I got to where I am today. Mm-hmm. And then, kind of sitting quiet like you, I started hearing the whisper of, you need to monetize this. You need to formalize this. This is the path. This is where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to do this. And I didn't feel like I was supposed to go back to school for a psychology degree or a therapy degree. Jay Shetty at the time was releasing his coaching program for the very first time. for some reason, it was all over my Instagram, my social media. And I was like,
For some reason.
really? Yeah, right. And, not attracting it. And I was looking. I ended up not doing Jay Shetty's program. But it was the catalyst for me to say, I can do this. I can do this. And, I had been with a multi-level marketing company for a very, very long time. And we would go to these conventions and we would have these amazing, motivational speakers, world-renowned motivational speakers come and speak. And we would leave and my girlfriends would pull me aside and say, you could do that. That should be you. That's what you should be doing. They just said everything you tell me all the time. And I looked at them and I said, you're right. I could do that. Like, there was no part of me that was like, oh my God, are you kidding? I can't get on a stage. I can't do this. I can't do that. And that is ultimately my goal, is to get what I know out to a much larger platform. The podcast is part of that, right? It's this one-to-many messaging, but there was no part of me that was like, no, it couldn't be me. I was like, you're fucking accurate. That is absolutely where I should be. So I had that energy, that excitement. And I came home and I said to my husband, to your point, when you asked yourself the question, do I really want to be doing this in 40 years? Like when I'm 40, at that time I was in my 40s. And I thought to myself, do I really want to be doing this in my 60s? No, I don't. So then where do I want to go? What is it that I want to do? And I started getting quiet and curious, like you talked about. And I just, again, opened it up to all possibilities, just like you talked about. And that's when I started literally hearing the whisper, coach, coach, coach. And I started printing stuff up. I started leaving it out. I started talking to my husband about it. And it wasn't until I had the courage to tell a friend, I think I'm going to do this, because I'm kind of all in. So if I say I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do it. And I said, and I'm going to have this up and running by the time I'm 50. And at the time I was 48. So I said, I just need like 18 months to figure it out and kind of start to plant the seeds and kind of just start to get my feet wet and follow the path it takes me to. But I really surrendered completely to a higher source.
Surrender is the word.
It's honestly, I felt so safe and held in this whisper of, you're supposed to be coaching. The beautiful thing about it is I had never seen The Secret. I had never read The Secret. I knew very little about the law of attraction. I had followed Esther Hicks just the slightest amount. But intuitively, I knew about it. Innately, I knew about it. Like I had experienced it at some other point, at some time. So I was very comfortable in that space. Now, it's not uncommon, at least weekly, for somebody to say to me, you were born for this. You're in the right place. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And often I hear, everything you've went through up to this point built you for this. So when you're hearing that and you kind of know it, but you're not going to like boldly say it. But when people are affirming that and they don't even know you're thinking it, you just know you're in your purpose place, really. Right? So tell me about your purpose place. How did this recognition of location freedom take you to where you are today?
So within that location freedom, my husband is older than I am, and he was aiming for retirement. So that was the second voice going, you're going to still be working, and he's working. And I really wanted to enjoy this chapter in his life with him, but that did not involve me working 7 days a week. But my voice didn't come the way yours came to you. My voice came to me in the direct human voice of two different people. I spoke to two different people two different wavelengths, two different genres, like totally different worlds apart. And both of them said to me that same day, you should be a coach.
Yeah.
And one of them actually said to me specifically, you should work with Bob and become a consultant. And my answer to them came out faster before I even thought about it. Yeah. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you need to do it. That was my response. And I remember leaving that second call and I went to my computer and I literally only like a few emails, one-liners, just like a yes, no, just that's all I needed to do to tidy a few things up. And I didn't have the focus to answer any of them. And that's when I felt and I knew. I was like, oh, am I starting to entertain this idea? What that means is when it goes from your conscious mind and it starts to slip into your subconscious mind, it's like, I am taking on this idea. It's becoming part of my new paradigm. And I didn't like it. And when this happens to people, it happens all the time. They don't like it. It feels really uncomfortable. And I was like, ooh. And
tell me, I want to explain, because I know what it is, but I want people to hear this. What was this? What was that?
For me, that's my paradigm taking me, because I was moving to a place of what was recognized as discomfort. It's like, come back to comfort, because I was going this other way. I was like, ugh,
And like, what was the comfort? Comfort is stick with what you know.
I had a great business. I had been mentored. I was running the way I wanted to run it. Why would I give myself more work to do? Why would I mess it all up? It's like, you don't need this in your life. But we all know when you get that feeling, you can't ignore it.
You really can't.
So I went downstairs. This is during lockdown. So my husband's complete business was shut down. So I was the breadwinner, so to speak, for that time. And I'm going downstairs and I thought, it's sunny outside, it's mid-afternoon. I thought, this conversation needs some wine. So I got a bottle of wine, 2 glasses. He's sitting out, loving his time off work for the first time in years. He's sunning himself. I says, I need to have a wee chat. Have a glass of wine, honey. That kind of, we've all been there, I'm sure. And I said to him, I says, 2 people said to me that I need to become a consultant. And he looked at me and he's like, I don't know what you mean. Because he didn't, even though I went through all this mentorship, he's like, you do you, honey. He could see how I was flourishing, but he was happy in his own wee ways. He had no interest. And I said to him, I mean, become a coach and coach people like I've been coached. And he looked at me and it was the most unexpected look. And he just looked at me and he says, Linda, because at this stage I'd been coached for 2 years. He goes, Linda, I've been waiting 2 years for you to say this. And I was taken aback. I just got a chill. I was like, because I never in a million years thought he was going to say that. And part of me knew, well, I thought if I go and say to him, he's going to tell me, no, that's silly. That's what I was, my paradigm was looking at that answer and I didn't get it. So he goes, I've been waiting for 2 years. I was like, what? I was like, nobody sent me a memo or anything. And then I goes, but, all the buts come out. And that's your paradigm, trying to keep you safe against you. You can come up with all your objections. But, I'd really like to do this. But, and whatever the but is a load of baloney. We know this. Mm-hmm. I goes, but it's a $30,000 investment. And he was like, and that's not going to bankrupt you. And I was like, again, not the answer I was looking for during a lockdown when you're completely shut down and I'm the one looking after everything. And then I said, well, maybe this is maybe Maytime. I go, maybe I'm very busy. I'm very busy. Maybe I'll do this in January. Start a new year. I'll start in January. And he cocked his head to the side and goes, Linda, that's only going to annoy you if you have to wait that long. And I was just like, who is this man? Everything he said, I was like, oh, so rich. And I was just like, okay, well, I guess I'm snookered now, as we would say. It's like, I have to go and do it. I cannot back out now. I literally have no choice. And I made the call, booked the appointment. It was the scariest call I ever had. Thought I was going to vomit all over my desk because my paradigm was literally wringing me out to dry. We call it, in Thinking into Results, the terror barrier. And this is when it's halfway through the program, because there will be things that you should do, but you're afraid. And when you understand the terror barrier, you understand that everything you want, every desire, freedom, it's always at the other side of the terror barrier. It may feel like the hardest thing, but I promise you, on the other side of fear is everything you ever wanted. And I could feel my body reacting to the terror, and I knew exactly what it was. And I was like, and it was so funny because, I was making the financial commitment there and then, and I'm talking to her, and my hands are moving, my body's moving. I'm sitting at this desk that I'm sitting at right now. I'm pulling out the drawer because I know my wallet's in there. I'm going to give her my credit card to pay for this. But on the outside, I was going, stop! What are you doing? It was like an outer body experience. I was screaming at myself, what are you doing? And I had not the power to stop my body from moving. I was completely powerless. And it was like, literally, you could have just blew me over with like a feather. I was just absolutely exhausted at the end of it. And after the call, I didn't even tell my husband because I'm still in this, because even though you step through a terror barrier, the fear doesn't disappear just like that.
Yeah.
It takes a while. So you just got to keep the faith. And I'm still so afraid. I'm like, oh my goodness, what have I done? I just have this thing. Like all the crazy paradigm voices were coming in my mind. So I didn't tell him that day. So the next morning we were traveling together in the car. It's like 9 a.m. and I work from home, so I'm not often up. I'm awake, but I'm not like out for the day at that time. And he just said to me, "You're very quiet." I was like, and he goes, "I suppose you've been thinking about that call yesterday." And I just blurted out, "Yes, I signed up. I sent the money." It just came out of my mouth, and I was just waiting for his reaction. And he turned to me and he literally threw his head back and he started to laugh so hard at me. And he laughed for literally about 10 minutes down the road as we were driving. He laughed so hard. And I was just like, there was the other side of the terror barrier. What was I afraid of? Everything, all the support that I needed was always there. I just needed to take a step. And he laughed so hard. And he goes, "Okay, well, what else do you need to make this happen?" And I said, "Well, I still have this to pay and I need to do this." And he goes, "Great." And we came together with a plan. And I literally had the money made back with the investment within a matter of months, like 2 or 3 months.
Unbelievable. And it's such a story of hope and inspiration. And I think it resonates with a lot of people because we all have that terror barrier all day, every day, right? Mm-hmm. Call it a mindset, call it a paradigm, call it a core belief. We have these blocks that stop us from doing big fucking scary shit, right? But on the other side of that is an amazing opportunity. If I had let my paradigm stop me, which was this, who am I to become a coach? I don't have the certification for that. I don't have the training for that. And I was looking for people to confirm that. So just I called a therapist that I knew. I called a PhD that I knew in psychology. I called people who had done the right path. And I said, "I'm really thinking about going down this path, but I don't have a coaching certification. I don't have this, but people have been coming to me for years. I've been coaching them already for years. And they all said the same thing to me. Tony Robbins never got certified in anything. But he's got a good message and it resonates with people and he has a massive impact on people and it's profound. He never did that. And that sat in my head and I was like, okay. So then I soft launched for a little bit and I dipped my toe in and I took 5 clients at no charge just to really prove to myself I could make an impact. And the agreement was, I just want a testimonial. Will you do this with me? You'll pilot this with me. The feedback was so profound and positive. And I was working with a coach that was kind of pushing me. And it was the agreement. January 1, you rip the Band-Aid off. Doors are open, shingles out, you're going. And that was in 2021 that I was going to do that. And I did it. And I literally leaped. And I literally have never looked back. But I was terrified. I had all kinds of shifts in my head that were It's really one of the few times I've had that, what I'll call itty bitty shitty committee in my head.
I love
was,
that. I
that
am
was
going to
like,
remember that.
yeah, the itty bitty shitty committee. That was like, who are you to ... But now when I hear at the other end, thank God you did this because you've helped me, or you helped my friend, or you helped my family member, and you're doing the right thing, and you're in the right space, and you're a gift. And thank God you listened to that voice. And then I know I have no fear, right? I say build it and they will come. I just keep learning the things that are important to me. I still get those whispers. You're supposed to know more about this. You're supposed to know about, I think you need more of this. And I invest in those things and I learn those things because I'm basically hearing I'm supposed to be doing it. And then immediately I'm finding the value in that and using it right away with my clients and seeing the impact. So opening yourself up to what is and surrendering the blueprint and literally allowing the universe, God, whatever you connect with, to guide and be open to and listen for the guidance. Honestly, it's what I do. I never have worry about where I'm going to find my next client. I never have scarcity. Even if I'm
turn up.
Huh?
They always kind of turn up.
They do. And even at the very, very beginning, if I had like a slow month, I remember thinking to myself, the universe is going to meet you where you are. Maybe you need some extra space in your month for whatever reason. And always something would pop up. A kid would get an injury, another one would be sick. It always kind of lined up. And it gave me the messaging of just keep doing what you're doing. And that has proven to be very good because now I would say 95, 6, 7% of the people I work with are referral. Because if you do the right thing and people get the result that they need or that they want or that they desire, and other people see it in them, they're going to want to know what it is that you did. How did you heal from that? How did you get that? Where can I contact that person? So it's a blessing. So I want people to know two things. Number one, can anybody work with you? Can anybody just hop on your website and start to get what it is that you have learned how to harness and teach other people?
I have some. The answer is yes. I have some like lower priced courses that pretty much can help anybody if you have an interest in that specific area. But the Thinking into Results program, this is where I say no, because I have the requirements that you are emotionally and physically and financially able to look after yourself. Because if you're not at those stages, you're probably suffering with something that I actually can't help you with. And that's, Stacey, where I think you come in. It's much deeper. And it doesn't matter. Now, this is not true for everyone. There will be a small percentage of those people who will have enough belief to get started and they will succeed. But I would say for the vast number of people who are in that situation, it's going to be a very difficult journey for them. It's not impossible, but it's going to be difficult. And
so how would you help somebody determine that? Like, what does that mean for someone?
Well, what I do is everybody comes on a discovery call and I get to hear what it is they want in life, and I can nearly tell by the language that they're using. When they speak about money, when they talk about their relationships, when they're talking about their emotions or what they're going through, I kind of already it's hard to explain, but I just get like an intuitive feeling, and I was like, this is not for you. And that's not a bad thing. It just it could be something like that. You're not actually in the right time of your life for this right now to give it your all, because there's nothing worse than going, I really want to do this, and disappointment at the end because something shows up. So I really like to connect with ideal clients, and And I attract them by the way that I speak. So the language that I use will attract people who I work with really well. That's so much to do with your messaging. So if your messaging is, attracting people who are going through trauma or always a struggle, you're gonna attract those people, and you're not always going to be able to help them. Right. For me, the clients that I really attract are those who have a deep, profound knowing that they were made for more.
Yeah.
They are very curious.
And that's a really interesting point, because it's funny. I have a client that's coming to mind right now who came to me with a significant lack of confidence and a significant lack of belief in self. And there were a whole host of reasons for it. One was experiences she had in childhood, which then caused her to attract a certain kind of partner, which ended up being not a good fit and made her feel even less valuable and less worthy and less capable. And so her belief in herself and her understanding of herself really was so low. And she did this Get Flipped intensive with me, which incorporates the rapid transformational therapy as well as, conscious level coaching. And literally in 4 sessions, she's a different person on my couch. Mm-hmm. She beams. She came in quiet and shallow and reserved and fearful she was going to say even the wrong thing to me, to a person that literally is saying to me, as she can barely contain herself on my couch, I feel unstoppable.
I love that.
It was amazing to hear. Mm-hmm. She may have not been ready for you 2 months ago, mm-hmm. but having done this work, I literally think she feels like there's nothing she can't do, because her belief in herself and her trust in herself has expanded greatly, mostly through the rapid transformational therapy work. I mean, it really is so amazing, that model. But that's someone that I feel like maybe 2 months ago, if she came to you, you'd be like, you're not ready for this ride yet. But coming off of doing this kind of intense work with me could be a real launching pad for her.
Absolutely. And the next stage of dealing with those really deep core emotional blocks that you have that perhaps you're not ready to deal with and this is the thing, a lot of people step into my kind of mentorship coaching because they don't have to go as deep as they do with the lectures, and they're still hiding from that. And that's what you find is they feed off the energy of the study and the group and the mentors. But when that's taken away, everything starts to go downhill again. Because they're holding that deep work. That's why it's really important to me that, yes, there still is deep work to do with me, but you've got to be in a mind space that you're prepared to go all in and do it. And then the next stage after that is, yes, you've got this amazing belief system, but we're still habitual beings. So a lot of the work that I do after that is helping you cultivate and create positive habits that make you productive, so you don't procrastinate as much, and you're getting more done in less time, which means you're earning more in less time. That's all part of a process. But that deep work, I've seen this where people get into mindset and they think that it's just a sticking plaster, because as long as you're distracting yourself, that's kind of why I say sometimes to distract themselves. So it's like, oh, I'm reading all these books. I'm like, but are you actually embodying everything?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not, that's a waste of time. It's just a mental exercise. It's not doing any good for you. But when you go all in, you feel it. And then the beautiful thing is when you do that, you don't ever go back.
Yeah, you can't unsee it. Right? You can't look at, that's why I do what I do. You're literally helping them change the lens and the filter through which they're seeing life. And then they can't unsee what they've been able to see, gain the clarity. So again, we could go on forever.
Good.
We've gone on pretty long. I want people to learn a little bit more about you. How can people learn more about what you do? Where's the best place for them to go?
You can visit my website, lindacarmichael.com. You can find me on Instagram at Lady Linda Carmichael. I'm on Facebook. with my company Rise and Mindset and Performance. Those are the main places where I'm hanging out. And for those of you who are listening who really feel that they are ready for that next level, they've kind of worked with their wounds. But again, you have to have that burning desire. Like, I really want more. I'm so curious about my potential. And you've kind of run out of excuses. That's what I always say. When people have ran out of excuses, I ran out of excuses. I couldn't blame anybody anymore for my results. I realized it was me. And that's you. And you're like, I've ran out of excuses now and I'm ready to just face whatever it is I need to do. This is where thinking into results is such a good match. It helps anyone. You don't even have to. I've had clients who were unemployed, people who were employed, people who've been entrepreneurs. Everybody gets something out of it that's different. But everybody will say that they just never felt the same way again. It completely changed how they view their life. And I was saying to a friend just on the phone today, and we've both been through a lot of mentorship and study. And I just said, isn't life so interesting now?
Yeah.
It never used to be. It used to be like, oh, just day in, day out, you work, you do this. Life is just like, even the little things life is so interesting. It's a lovely way to live.
It is a lovely way to live. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a great conversation. Again, guys, it's lindacarmichael.com. Of course, I'll have that link in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me today, Linda. It's been such a pleasure to hear about what can be on the other side of trauma. Mm-hmm. Guys, again, she follows Bob Proctor. You want to go to her website. It's Linda Carmichael. If you guys enjoyed this podcast, I highly recommend that you subscribe to Flip Your Mindset wherever you catch your casts, because I do drop a new cast every single Monday, and it will always give you an alert or a notification so you can come on and listen to the next story, the next expert that could change your life. So thank you so much for listening. Linda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Have a good day.